Chelsea are not Cole Palmer FC anymore. It's gonna be okay. Yo, what's happening, friends, and welcome on back to Football Therapy with me, your host Jan, as always. I do hope you are doing well, friend. I really do hope that. And welcome on back to Chelsea News, of course. It is the daily series here on the channel every single ruddy day, mate, where I reflect on what's been said about Chelsea, giving you my thoughts, feelings, and opinions on it. But more importantly, asking for yours. And in today's video, we are, of course, firstly reacting to the article on The Athletic by Simon Johnson talking about Cole Palmer's injury. His setback, we did fear this could happen, but we do have attackers that can come in and fill in for him. Of course, he is a irreplaceable player, an incredible talent. We're going to learn a little bit more about his injury, and we can speculate what's going to happen next. I do want to react a little bit to, obviously, Kaisedo did that briefing, or report, definitely a Chelsea briefing, essentially saying, we're not going to buy a goalkeeper, we're not going to buy a centre-back. But there's still loads of news coming from international European media linking Chelsea to different centre-backs. Now, is that just a briefing to make Chelsea look stronger in the market? Is there a chance they are going to buy a centre-back? Of course, we know Maresca still really wants one, so we'll speak a little bit about that as well. And I do want to touch on the culture wars a little bit, and this is a very much it's international break story, but you know, ever since Jamie Carragher was on Sky Sports he was asked, is Kaisedo the best midfielder in the Premier League at the moment? He was like, oh, no, Declan Rice. He went to Declan Rice. Jamie Carragher's been backed into a corner recently, having to praise Chelsea after relentlessly slagging Chelsea off for a long time. I think the comparisons between Rice and Kaisedo are silly, but I do want to touch on it a little bit myself. Right, strap yourselves in, get comfortable. If you want to support the content, it's super simple. Just like and subscribe. Easy, innit? Like and subscribe. We are on the road to 200,000 subscribers, so if you do find yourself coming back and enjoying it, it would help me out a lot if you drop a sub on this channel. Alright then, let's get into it. First of all, guys, if you haven't seen yesterday's upload, I'd urge you to go check it out. We did a lot of data comparison stuff with like strikers at Chelsea, Joao Pedro, Nico Jackson. We looked at Madueke versus Estevao, of course, like his new replacement, the new deputy under Neto. But of course, before long, we can imagine seeing the likes of Estevao start for Chelsea, I would assume, or maybe play a little bit more inside in the absence of Cole Palmer. We can speculate on that a little bit. And we looked at goalkeepers as well. I love doing stat comparison stuff. It's a bit of a throwback on this channel, and if you're yet to watch that video, I'd recommend you go check it out because you might enjoy it and find it intriguing. I got really great feedback from all of you down in the comments, so yeah, if you're yet to see it, go check out yesterday's upload. But we are going to start on the Cole Palmer injury situation and cite some information from the article from Simon Johnson of The Athletic. He writes the following: Chelsea expect Cole Palmer to be sidelined until November following a club meeting about his groin injury. There's never any big collective meetings about my groin. Palmer, who's 23, is set to miss Chelsea's return to action after the international break at Nottingham Forest, of course, October the 18th, as well as the home game against Ajax in the Champions League, the visit to Sunderland and the Premier League, and the trip to Wolverhampton Wanderers in the Carabao Cup fourth round. That is a lot of games there, guys. The England international aggravated the injury, which also ruled him out for 2 games in August, of course, during the 2-1 defeat to Man United in September the 20th. Club sources, speaking on condition of anonymity to protect relationships, indicated he remains a number of weeks away from a return. Yeah, not so great. I mean, it's not months, it's not as good as days, it's weeks. Now, apparently he doesn't need surgery. Maresca has reiterated that. I don't think he needs surgery. But he is going to finally have to have a rest, Cole Palmer. Now, he has a little bit of injury here and there in his Chelsea career, but he's always generally been available. Of course, we obviously utilised him in really important moments, and he came to form in, you know, the Conference League final and indeed throughout the Club World Cup. Certainly the Club World Cup final, he absolutely cooked. That was his biggest performance as a footballer so far. Even though he, you know, did amazing in the Conference League final, man of the match, to do it against the European champions PSG in the Club World Cup final was a superb demonstration, a high profile one, of his immense ability. What a superstar baller he is. I do wonder though if we just overcooked him a little bit. It kind of reminds me of when, who was it? Maurizio Sarri playing, was it N'Golo Kante in the conference, in the Europa League final, like playing him for injury, and it sort of like screwed him up for a little while, and he was in and out with injury for a little while until finally Tuchel brought him back, and he had a really good run in the Champions League, and he was just amazing, and we won the Champions League. Lovely times. Great memories. Now, we do have to be really, really careful with Cole Palmer here. Of course, the narrative of Cole Palmer FC has fluctuated in and out over the last, months, years, really. I mean, we've had moments where without him, we look really, really poor, but I don't think that's the case now. Heck, there was even moments where we had a couple of good games when he wasn't playing, and we were sort of losing games when he was in the team, and people were going, ooh, are we a better team without Cole Palmer? Which, of course, is nonsense. And the Chelsea manager himself has said, Enzo Maresca, on multiple occasions, he's our best player. We are always going to be a better team with him in the side, which almost everyone will agree with that, because it's the truth. Not if he's carrying an injury, though. I know he always wants to play. He's definitely not got main character syndrome, Palmer, but he does have a great deal of self-belief, and he knows he's good, therefore he wants to play and be in a winning team, and the team's better and get more points on the board, and therefore you could challenge for honours. So he wants to be on the pitch. He's one of those players that are like, yeah, I'm the guy, get me on the pitch. Especially as a young player, he's still learning about his body. Maybe he gets to the point with Reece James where, okay, this is a sort of problem that could be recurring. I need to be careful here, and I need to make sure I don't put myself in the position where, Maresca has to take me off when Rob Sanchez has got a red, and then all this goes wrong, basically. So yes, he's going to be on the sidelines for a few weeks, but Chelsea, maybe, he's had this for a long time, this groin injury, so maybe even when we got like Facundo Buonanotte on a 1-year loan, I mean, I'm not going to compare Buonanotte in terms of talent level to Cole Palmer, but profile, he is very much a floaty, quick turn, half turn pass player, and that number 10, if you will. Chelsea can survive without Cole Palmer. Now, there's a few ways we do this, of course. One is you just played, Enzo Fernandez is a very different type of number 10, more of a sort of crash the box late and try and finish moves, rather than being like a floaty playmaker like Cole Palmer is. You play the aforementioned Buonanotte, who of course is a similar profile of Cole, just nowhere near as good. Now, of course, there is Stevao, and he does want to play as a number 10 in his career. He said long term, that's where he sees himself. But I think there's still a lot of responsibility in that role at the moment at Chelsea that Maresca sees, Cole totally capable of doing, obviously. Enzo Fernandez, his vice captain, who, although he gets frustrated with him every now and again, he trusts to execute the tactical plan, and of course I imagine they speak in detail in Spanish, Fernandez being a native Spanish speaker and Maresca speaking fluent Spanish, so he can really explain what he needs from him. But with Stevao, it's a little bit different. The wingers have to track back and defend. That's why I think Neto starts over Stevao for the moment, but when you're just trying to win and cook, the wide players, I think, can have a little bit more free reign than maybe the central playmaker. So that's probably why he trusts Stevao just to be a sort of, a finisher in a game off the bench on a wide flank. But maybe we'll see, Stevao come in and play on the inside really, really well. But I think, genuinely, the best option here, staring us all in the face, is João Pedro. Now, João Pedro's best performances for Chelsea in the league, or probably best, was against West Ham. We scored 5 goals. He absolutely cooked. I know Liam Delap played ahead of him. Liam Delap didn't get a goal. He didn't get assist. But he was crucial in that performance as a facilitator, so players behind him, like a João Pedro, can do really well. Now, again, if you haven't watched it, go watch my last video. I show you the comparison stats of João Pedro and Nicholas Jackson, who's at Bayern Munich, who's still owned by Chelsea, of course. But it shows you some really illuminating stats about how really, really good João Pedro is. He's just not taking any shots. Literally, he's good at converting shots. He's literally not kicking the ball towards the goal, ever. But when he plays off an actual striker, whether that be a Liam Delap, whether that be a Mark Gue, he plays a lot better. So what I would look to do for the moment until Delap's returned is I would maybe try and get Gue cooking, make it work. You could say, we play Pedro Neto up there as a false 9, but he's not going to do the job of a big striker like a Liam Delap. He's a false 9. Suddenly you've just got 2 false 9s switching in João Pedro and Pedro Neto. course, in that instance, you'd play Stevao on the right or something like that. But ultimately, my main way of dealing with this be you find a way to get Joao Pedro in Palmer's position, you accommodate him, and he'll do really great levels of productivity. And we go from there, man. Right, I want to quickly talk about the centre-back situation, and then we'll do this whole Kaisedo-Rice comparison. Okay, so we heard the brief from Kaisedo from Sky Sports, and indeed we've probably seen it or heard it from other journalists, reporters. I imagine, I'm not saying, you know, specifically, but you know, your Ben Jacobs, your Matt Laws, people that hear directly from Chelsea Football Club, and they say, oh, we're not planning on doing this, we're not planning on doing this. So that's what we heard yesterday, and although I do recommend you go watch the data comparisons from yesterday's video, a little quick update, Kaisedo said on the transfers that we are not going to buy a centre-back, certainly in January, and we're not going to buy a goalkeeper in January or the summer. The goalkeeper thing, it's largely to do with Mike Penders. We look at his data in that video again, so you do want to check that out. But the centre-back thing got a lot of you guys frustrated, and a lot of Chelsea fans frustrated everywhere. Now, they did list off all the centre-backs that we have and the options, and the returning Mamadou Sarr and the returning Aaron Anselmino, and there's just so many centre-backs. But really, it's like one quality alternative to Levi Colwill. Despite a new growing belief in Benoit Badiashile, there is this kind of, we've got a lot, like, come on, you know, like the sporting directors going to Maresca, come on, look at all these guys, look at all these guys, you have so many guys here, use one of them, do you know what I mean? So I sort of understand that, but we do know Maresca's position was clear, and he sees these players all the time. He spends every waking moment, you know, working on Chelsea stuff, and he was essentially saying, like, yeah, I need a defender. You know, I don't think that, although he's happy to work within the parameters that have been set now, his position remains the same. The fact how there's, you know, news stories everywhere. I've been looking online. I'm not going to share them here because they're like random Italian ones, this, that and the other, certain centre-backs. Until there's movement and closer to the transfer window, I don't see any reason to talk about it. Like certain individuals, I mean, like certain footballers. But what I do think is, these stories come from somewhere. Player agents, people in clubs, they link the stories, and it does pose the question, because Chelsea have done this before. They've said their position is one thing, and then they go and do another thing. Now, you can't blame them for this. This is normal practice. Because if they went, oh yeah, we definitely want a centre-back, they put themselves in a really weak negotiating position, and they've got loads of centre-backs themselves that they need to offload. They need to use the fact how they've got a portfolio of all these players to say publicly, no, we're not in for a centre-back, we've got all these guys. See, obviously we're not. And then obviously, if they do make an inquiry, they don't come across as this club that have been in such public desperate need for a centre-back. That's kind of why I think Maresca was silenced in a way. Stop asking for a centre-back in public, because it, more than anything, if we do try and get you one, we won't be able to get you one because you've put us in a weaker position. So look, I'm not saying it's one way or another, but the fact how there's still continued links, still continued conversation about a defender. In terms of what I do think we probably got when everyone's fit, if everyone's fit continually. Benoit Badiashile finds a way to stay fit. If Wesley Fofana finds a way to stay fit, I do think Chelsea have got enough to be very good between starter Levi Colwill and then, in my opinion, starter Fofana, but in many others' opinions, starter Joshua Champong. They see a great future for him. Or Trevoh Chalobah, of course, he's got really lot of fans in the club and the fan base. Tosin, you know, his stocks were up for a huge while. Badiashile can fill in for Colwill, Hato can. And then, you know, if everyone's fit and grows up a little bit, because there's a lot of youth in there still, that Chelsea are fully equipped to navigate whatever they're trying to aim for. Personally, I still think we need a really high quality leadery style centre-back, because it's shown without Colwill how fragile we are. We haven't seen Badiashile given a proper run. By the end of the season, Badiashile might have played like 35 games for Chelsea or something crazy and looks really good, and the conversation goes away with him and Colwill rotating. But for the moment, that's what I want to think. That's what I think, rather. Right, I'm going to move on. I want to talk about the culture wars between Kaisedo and Declan Rice. Now, it makes me laugh. Every international break, there's always something like this. You know, Ronaldo, Messi, Hazard, Salah, this guy, that guy. This obviously stemmed probably because Carragher, who's been relentlessly criticising Chelsea, only to have his team, you know, comfortably, I say comfortably beaten, that's unfair, outplayed by Chelsea ultimately in the game at Stamford Bridge. Kaisedo was amazing, man of the match. Look, Kaisedo has been amazing for Chelsea for a long time. His first 6 months, and only his first 6 months, he struggled. And for some reason, that narrative bled into an additional 6 to 12 months afterwards. He didn't get a pre-season. He was wanting to come to Chelsea. Brighton accepted a bid to the aforementioned Liverpool for £111 million. Liverpool were prepared to pay for Kaisedo. Klopp even spoke about it in his press conference, like, yeah, we're waiting. He said no. He chose Chelsea. That's probably what caused a bit of bitterness. Jamie Carragher, especially with like Lavia doing the same afterwards, saying no to Liverpool, yes to Chelsea. But he didn't have a pre-season, Kaisedo. It took him a little while to get going because of this whole fiasco. But when he got going, he was amazing. He's been amazing for like, what is it, a year, best 2 years, year and a half, whatever it is, a long, long time now. And it's really only maybe at the end of last season, Club World Cup this season, people are going, oh, Kaisedo's really good, isn't he? Silly, innit? It's just people who don't look close enough. Anyway, so because Carragher was asked about this, I think because, you know, Gary Neville said he's the best midfielder in the Premier League. Carragher's got this, dare I say, agenda against Chelsea, so he didn't want to admit it. He said he's very close, but he had to pick a midfielder in his head to say he's better. You could tell he scrambled and said Declan Rice. He didn't want to pick Gravenberch or a Liverpool player, so he goes straight to Declan Rice. And then, of course, that created this big like culture, social media war. Look, I want to say I absolutely love Declan Rice. I am an England fan. Declan Rice is an England player, international. Declan Rice is a Chelsea fan. Declan Rice comes from a family of Chelsea fans, and he did want to come back to Chelsea, but the move didn't materialise. He's very happy at Arsenal now. By the way, Declan Rice is also a really top boy. Like, he's an absolute gem of a lad. Love him. And am I going to say, I personally think Kaisedo is the best midfielder in the world right now. But despite my blue-tinted Chelsea bias, this is what I think, because of what Kaisedo is doing, if he adds goals in front of it on top of everything, I think the three best midfielders in the world are Vitinha, Pedri and Kaisedo. But they all do different things. You could say Pedri and Vitinha are a bit more similar, but they're different. I think they're the three best midfielders in the world operating right now. My opinion. Football's a game of opinions. Declan Rice is one of the top 8 midfielders in the world, I'd say. Declan Rice is a very different player. Now, this is classic just wanting to compare. Declan Rice is at his best now. He's been rightly lauded for being amazing because he's in this new number 8 role where he crashes the back post, scores some goals. He's now on dead ball situations where he takes free kicks and corners very well, by the way. He's a leader. He's quite easy. You know, he could still play CDM. He's a good defender, but that's what he does. That's his roles. Kaisedo is like a one-man running, defending midfield. Kaisedo, you know, Declan Rice is sort of a functional, really high-quality functional cog now. Kaisedo like will protect your whole team. He doesn't he does N'Golo Kante stuff. He's starting to do Frank Lampard stuff. He's different gravy granules. He's in a league of his own, but they're different roles, man. If you compare their data, they're just completely different data sets anyway, so it's pointless to compare. You'd be closer to compare Enzo Fernandez to Declan Rice in terms of player profile, where they're occupying the space at the moment. You know, Enzo Fernandez would take corners. You know, that's what I mean. So the point to compare the profile of Kaisedo and Rice is just silly. Compare Fernandez and Rice if you want. And also, I think Kaisedo is just in the form of his life and no one can speak to him at the moment. My personal opinion. I wanted to get it out there. Let me know your thoughts though. Please do leave them down in the comments section below. I'll be very pleased to have them. And thank you for supporting the content. I really do appreciate all of your support, really. Thank you for liking. Thank you for subscribing. And do come back every ruddy day because I'm always here. Enjoy the football. Peace.
You ain't so tough with that bad boy tuck. I'ma get it how I'm living, I'ma walk the walk. Outline my lines, I rap through thought. Body bag the verse, outlined in chalk. In my life seen trouble, hustle on the double. Silence on the trigger like my pick got a muzzle. Yo chick like to guzzle, bad boy stay in trouble. I only love this paper, sorry I don't. I laugh me baby.